commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience. Visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
The choice we make in 1968 will determine not only the future of America, but the future of peace and freedom in the world for the last third of the 20th century. As we look at America, we see cities enveloped in smoke and flame. We hear sirens in the night. We see Americans dying on distant battlefields abroad.
Wow, it's just so amazing.
Our convention occurs at a moment of crisis for our nation. The attacks on our police and the terrorism of our cities threaten our very way of life. America.
Okay, and then there's this comparison too. This is Nixon being trying to be all-inclusive, like beaches or sandals. Okay, this is Nixon giving it his best shot, trying to prove he's not a racist. And of course, we did find out from the Nixon tapes, he was a world heavyweight champion racist.
As we look at America, we see cities enveloped in smoke and flame. We hear sirens in the night.
That's okay.
We see Americans dying on distant battlefields abroad. We see Americans hating each other, fighting each other, killing each other at home. And as we see and hear these things, millions of Americans cry out in anguish. Did we come all this way for this? Did American boys die in Normandy and Korea and in Valley Forge for this? Listen to the answer to those questions. It is another voice. It is a quiet voice in the tumult of the shouting. It is the voice of the great majority of Americans, the forgotten Americans, the non-shouters, the non-demonstrators. They're not racist or sick. They're not guilty of the crime that plagues the land. They are black and they're white. They're native-born and foreign-born. They're young and they're old.
All-inclusive.
They work in America's factories. They run America's businesses. They serve in government. They provide most of the soldiers who died to keep us free.
In Vietnam.
They give drive to the spirit of America. They give lift to the American dream. They give steel to the backbone of America. They're good people. They're decent people. They work and they save and they pay their taxes and they care. Like Theodore Roosevelt, they know that this country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless it's a good place for all of us to live in.
Okay, there was Richard Nixon, the beaches of candidates, the sandals. It's all inclusive, okay? He loves everybody equally, and it won't be a good place till everybody's treated the same, and blah, 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 blah. But it turns out he was a world heavyweight champion racist and an anti-Semite on top of it, and 200,000 more kids would die in Vietnam under Richard Nixon, who said he had a secret plan to end the war. But on the compassion front, Donald Trump also took from Richard Nixon's 1968 GOP acceptance speech.
On January 20th of 2017, the day I take the oath of office.
He kept saying that. It will never happen.
Americans will finally wake up in a country where the laws of the United States are enforced.
Sounds like Al Pacino in The Devil's Advocate. Doesn't he? Me too.
We are going to be considerate and compassionate to everyone.
Everyone, all inclusive.
But my greatest compassion will be for our own struggling citizens.
This is my favorite part. I had to let it go to this, right? No, just one.
USA, USA, USA.
What a spaz, man. He is just spastic. All right, so, it was Richard Nixon's 1968 speech. I think this is what I set out to prove today, and this is what I have proved, that he took that. It was the the long, dark shadow will be lifted speech from Richard Nixon. There was no shining city on the hill here. There was no 1,000 points of light. There was none of that. There was no morning in America. It was good night, good luck. It was you're on your own, but you know what? I'll be your voice. That was the thing. Richard Nixon called it the silent majority, and Donald Trump just said, I will be your voice. It was the same damn speech. He's Richard freaking Nixon. And I really feel that this is what you have to tell people, because they will never look up the statistics on crime. They will never look up the leading cause of death amongst police officers. And yes, it was horrible that they were murdered, and they were murdered. And we had this gruesome week last week. We saw 2 people executed, and we saw police officers just murdered in 2 cities. It was just horrifying, terrible. But it's not the trajectory of the United States. That is not the direction we have been going in. It's just a point. It's 1 point in 1,000 points, right? I mean, it was just one stat, one terrible, horrible week. And it was in response to executions shown on the TV. We had the death hour, and everybody saw people being murdered, and people lost their minds, literally, and went out and decided that this was what they would do, and it did no good. Brought no justice for anybody, no resolution to any of the problems, nothing good happened. In fact, we stopped talking about innocent black people, unarmed black people, or people who are permitted to carry a weapon, telling the police officer, I'm legally carrying a weapon. Please, go get it. It's in my glove, being shot anyway. It was just, it's a vicious little circle of lunacy that goes on, that went on last week. But none of it's borne out by any of the statistics about the trajectory of our nation. But Donald Trump exploited everything. He even exploited the poor mother who lost her son, her CIA son. She, Pat Smith. They exploited her. I mean, she is delusionally full of grief. She is just beside herself with grief. They always say that the worst thing that could happen is you lose a child, and I don't ever want to know that. My poor mother knows that because, we lost my sister, and my mother never really recovered from it. And I know that this woman never recovered from it, and she probably never will. And so they exploited her. They put her on the stage, and she went on one of her rambling, why did this happen? I've heard it from Loretta. Loretta does it too every once in a while, especially on, my sister's birthday or on the anniversary of. I don't celebrate the day she died. I just don't. But my mother remembers it all the time and calls me and, why, and it's just gut-wrenching. It's that mother's shriek. It's a sound that a human being could never make unless they lost their child. It's a unique sound that only a mother can make after she's lost her child. And they exploited that woman. They put her on the stage, and she blamed everyone under the sun for what a terrorist did. Everyone. She blamed everyone except the murderer. She blamed Hillary. She blamed this administration. She didn't know why her son was there. Her son was there because he was CIA. That's just the fact, okay? And yes, the CIA has IT guys, because most of the intelligence gathering that we do, I mean, there's a lot of, personal intel. I mean, we've all seen Homeland. Carrie risks her life, she really does. And this guy, was an IT guy because they do signals intelligence. They do all kinds of, intelligence. And we have one of the most incredible intelligence operations in the history of mankind. And Donald Trump is insinuating that nobody is, standing on that wall. And it's just not true. But he's just not interested, apparently, in getting the Bernie voters over to his side. He tried. He made a stab at it, right? He talked about these terrible, terrible trade agreements.
I have seen firsthand how the system is rigged against our citizens, just like it was rigged against Bernie Sanders. He never had a chance. Never had a chance. But his supporters will join our movement because we will fix his biggest single issue, trade deals that strip our country of its jobs and strip us of our wealth as a country. millions of Democrats will join our movement.
This is his Reagan
we
moment.
are going to fix the system so it works fairly and justly for each and every American.
Okay, so this was his Reagan moment. This was his Reagan Democrat culling of a Reagan Democrat, a Bernie, Democrat will vote for him. Except he got Bernie all wrong. Bernie's biggest issue was Citizens United, still is. Bernie's biggest issue, actually the bigger one, is income inequality. Bernie's big, giant, oozing issue, one that I also think is America's largest issue, plaguing our country, is the decimation of the middle class. It is the trickling up, if you will, of wealth. It is the the top 1/10 of 1% owning 90% of the wealth. The top 1% own 98% of the wealth, but the top 1/10 of 1%, those are the people that own almost all of it. And that's Bernie's big issue. Also, he wants, a tax on Wall Street. He wants a Glass-Steagall, return to law. Bernie does, have a beef with some of these trade agreements. There's no question about it. But it's not his biggest issue, Donald. So even that was untrue, and that should be appalling to people who actually, gave Bernie the $27 because Bernie was talking about the biggest issue we face, and that is the unequal distribution of wealth and justice in this country. And those two things are what make America America: capitalism and a land of laws. And that's why Bernie was so appealing, because Bernie gave voice to the two things that are heinously wrong with this country, and that is inequality under justice in the justice system and inequality in creating and keeping wealth. Because we don't get to exploit tax codes. So anyway, it was a nice try, Donald, but it didn't work. Sean in San Francisco. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my fault.
Time.
No, go ahead. Start again.
Oh,
Five,
first
6,
time, long time.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Hello, Randy. First time, long time.
Oh, you're good.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
My goodness, it's so wonderful to hear your voice, and it's so wonderful that you're back doing your thing. I know so many people that missed you. Oh, my goodness. And, I've been listening back since the Air America days. So now we're getting this team back in full swing here.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. But no, last night, oh, my goodness, I call him platitudinous Donald. I mean, he spoke for so long, yet not one solution, right?
Not one. He said, he started it out where he said, now, tonight I'm going to tell you the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but. And then he said he was going to lay out his plan. So I sat there. I got to record it as he's doing it. I record it live on one of the live streams. I think I did the YouTube. And I had a copy of the transcript, which made it a little easier. And so I knew which parts I wanted to capture, record, and blah, 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 right? But as I was reading it, it said that he was going to offer me solutions. By the time he went on stage, I'd already read it and knew there was none in the offing. There wasn't anything to even grab because he would not give us any solution. It was, you'll wake up in the morning and ISIS will be gone. And then you'll wake up the next day and the birds will be singing and the skies will open and the angels will weep because there will be no more, crime in the streets. There will be no more. Everything will be just beautiful. It was bad.
Well, that's what he does. All he's doing is catering to the uninformed and the misinformed, and that is the Republican Party following, and it's been for a long time.
Yeah.
The difference is here we have this opportunity, and the difference, he's telling everyone to be little scaredy weaklings, whereas the Democratic Party better come out in this convention and be optimistic and say we're going to build on this record. Now that Bernie's improved this platform, we've got a roadmap to follow. And now us, the voters, and the Democratic Party has to listen to us. They got to put some of this stuff into action if we can get them into office come November.
Yeah, and I think that somebody, each night, somebody ought to be designated to debunk Donald Trump. I really do. I mean, no, seriously, debunking falsehoods is a very, very important part of America's problem. There are people who debunk or people who fact check, and they're only in the newspaper. And so, and a lot of people, A, don't read it, B, can't afford it. So because now even to get, these subscriptions to the Times and the Washington Post and all these things, you have to pay. And a lot of people can't do it. And they don't, So, I mean, this is another reason why I came back, was to debunk the crap that's passing for, real. It's not
President
real.
Obama had that Truth Squad. I would like Hillary to have her Truth Squad where you could get an email and debunk things, real quickly.
Yeah, a war, her war room has to, decide that it needs to go to war against the lies that Donald Trump is telling about her, and that Donald Trump is telling about the American people, and that he's telling about crime and immigration and jobs. Okay? This country, when Obama took over, was in such dire straits. The economy was losing 800,000 jobs every single month. Yeah. The stock market had crashed. My house was almost worthless. My 401k had been decimated. Okay. And it took all this time for everybody to recover. And we have. I mean, unemployment in this country was 10%. It was over 10%. It's now down to easy breezy 5%, and in some places a little less, and in some places a little more.
Amazing with what we did to President Obama not give it in 2010. And I remember you calling out the whiny Democratic babies for not continuing to give them the majorities. But look what he did despite all. That's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. And it was all about that stimulus, and it was about, Obamacare. There's a lot of problems with it. There's no question. I've used it. Thank God I had it. Because, I would have lost my house, I would have lost my car, I would have lost everything without it. However, there are problems. It needs to be fixed, but you could not go to this Congress and ask to help fix it. All they wanted to do was destroy it, and that would have left me out in the cold. And especially now, because I have a pre-existing condition, I would not have health insurance at this point. And I'm not old enough for Medicare, and I'm not poor enough for Medicaid.
Well, I totally understand. I really appreciate you taking my call. And by the way, you look beautiful on that live stream. I watched it on the Facebook and on my computer.
Are you watching today?
And it's so wonderful to talk to you.
Are you watching today?
I did watch for a minute, but not while I'm talking to you.
Because I think the video was janky again today. I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know what it is. It works perfectly for the 2 hours before, and then we come on, and the whole thing gets very janky.
Well, looked good for me yesterday, so you're looking good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Howard tells me I'm very pretty when I sleep. So, when I'm in the box, I think I'll look pretty good. Wait, what's going on here with this thing now? Wait. Yeah. Oh. Well, it's almost the top of the hour. It wasn't playing for me. Everything here today has its own. It's like they think my computers, they think. I love this line from Ivanka, though. It was memorable. She said, "My father said to me when I was a little girl, after the nannies bathed me and put on my pajamas and tucked me into the bed, he'd come into my room, ever so creepily, and say, 'Ivanka, if you're going to think, you might as well think big.'" That was a good line. She's fabulous, but at the wrong convention. But I was going to say, my computers think it's beer o'clock because they're doing their own thing. They're not participating in my thing. Ghosts in the machine. Okay.